on when I'm writing. But when you sit and when you're thinking through the plot, there's a magical moment that sometimes happens when the flow hits. Then you're writing, you're just kind of, your characters are moving, they're jumping off cliffs or hanging from helicopters, whatever it is. But stuff's happening, it's moving, and there is a flow to writing which is amazing. And Stephen King actually calls it, the muse of writing. She comes and she starts sitting over you and takes you over. That's happened to me very few times because of, right, interruptions happen, things happen. But I think it's one of the most fantastic moments a writer can actually have. When the muse comes and takes you over and you're propelled forward. So I think discipline, and when you set aside long periods of time to do that, that happens. It can happen. So I think yes, in a word.
Yes, discipline is very important. I don't think any writer will tell you otherwise. You have to put time aside, and whether it is productive, whether it is retained in the final draft or not, once you begin to work on something, you have to work regularly at it. And as you write, there are connections that are formed and it takes you forward. I just want to, there was the mystique of 80,000 words. Well, 270 to 300 pages, that is the length that publishers look for in a stamp. That is around 80,000 to 100,000 words, which is what a full-length novel or a full-length book is what a publisher expects. Anything less than that wouldn't qualify as or as a book, or anything more than that also publishers don't encourage.
Okay, one last question to the panelists. We're getting a lot of interesting questions from the audience. So we'll probably, I have a few other questions, I'll skip those. One last question, then we'll go on to the audience. The short stories versus novels, the debate is unending. We've seen that in the marketplace. Today there aren't too many short stories in supply. Publishers are cagey about publishing short stories. Authors are cagey about writing short stories because publishers don't publish them. If you go to any of the bookstores, you ask for short stories, they give you a Jeffrey Archer, maybe a Ruskin Bond, but nothing new. So, but you've done well in the short story space. Now, for anybody beginning to write, while it's nice to say, follow your port of call, whatever you feel like doing, do. But assuming that we want any of these guys wanting to write, we want them to become successful authors, known authors of tomorrow, what would be the piece of advice you would give to them on this short story versus novel debate? And two, why is it that short stories don't sell? Don't people read short stories? What is your take on this?
I think to take today's situation, I think short stories don't sell. So, if they don't sell, you don't write them. That's the whole problem. And every publisher tells a writer, come to me with a novel. But many of them are not really novelists. I've seen so many of them who are really short story writers. So I think it's very difficult because I think short stories will come back. I think I see a little more of it now. I see many collections, and Bangalore itself has had about 4 or 5 collections. I think it will come back, and I think it's ideally suited to today. You just read one story at a time. I think it's a wonderful form, and but for me, the novel was the form I wanted. I wrote about 60, 70 short stories, and then I just wanted the space of the novel. I like the space. So I think it's what you really want to do, but publishing requires you to sometimes write a novel and not a novel. I think that's sad.
So does that mean that for everyone present here, in case you want to start writing, if you just want to satisfy a creative urge, write a short story. If you want to get published and be seen in the market, you have a better chance if you write a novel.
Well, I think writing short stories is excellent because it teaches you. I mean, for me, it was like a lab where I learned about writing the novel. I learned about everything about writing the novel and short stories. So I think it's not a waste. One should write short stories, and hopefully they'll be published.
And Usha, your take on this?
Well, I will echo what Shashi says. The novel is something that is more suited to my inclination, but I did begin by writing short stories. But yes, the short story is making a comeback. I think if you have a collection of short stories with a thread, a common thread, and a perspective which is similar, something that a publisher can put out as a single point of view, or there's a unity, that would make it easier. But talking about short stories, There are two kinds of short stories. There is one which is like a miniature novel, which has the same proportions for the story, the plot, the character. There's the climax and then the denouement, which Kingsley Amis talks about. He says that it is his short stories and Rudyard Kipling. They're very much like miniature novels. And then there is the V.S. Pritchett model, which is the short story that is a slice of life, like something glimpsed out of the corner of your eye. Now that is something that maybe a novel cannot sustain. It is just a moment, a feeling, a fleeting glimpse that you capture. And several such glimpses maybe can give you an idea about the way the writer's mind is working, or if you're writing city-based, the theme is, say, the city or an urban theme, and you have several such stories, there is a unity there. Maybe such a collection would work better.
Thanks, Usha. I'm not asking you this question, Arun, because you like me, I'm not a short stories guy, right? So, okay, now, all the hands that went up, please attack.
Good evening. I agree with what Mr. Subramaniam said, that writing a novel is like wooing a girlfriend. But then he forgot to add that you need deep pockets also. So,
Wooing a girlfriend or writing a novel?
yeah, the question is exactly that. Today, don't you think that money is an entry barrier to writing, because all the writers who seem to write today are apparently pretty well heeled, except for maybe J.K. Rowling, who made it big otherwise. All the writers today have a lot of money, and the books are so expensive on the first place that you don't have enough money to buy books to read in the first place. Then your hopes as a writer is dashed there itself.
So, who was your question addressed to? Who do you want?
Anyone.
First of all, which is why I, as Shashi also said, and I would echo that, I would not ask people to give up their jobs. There are some people who are so passionate about, say, writing fiction that they want to give up everything that they have and start writing. I think that is not so. A day job is very important. And secondly, I think communities should build libraries. I agree it's very difficult to buy every book that is out there when so many books are being written. So we have to make a concerted effort to develop more libraries so that you don't have to buy every book that you are interested in. And yes, that's it.
We didn't hear anything about the influence of movies and television on your writing, like script writing, and how that has influenced your writing, especially yours, Arun. And vice versa, do you write for movies? So it's become movie on it.
Yeah, so, of course, someone who's writing my kind of stuff, there is a link to the movie world, right? It's always nice if you can try and see what the movie possibilities are. But I'd say in my personal case, it's not, my writing has come from, the influences have been also the written word. I can't think of any case where a movie has influenced me in my writing. I can't think of anything. It's more just what I've read.
Not the content, but the style.
Style essentially it's come to me, one, from the oral experiences of my youth, my childhood, but also the written word. Movies have not been.
Okay, just to answer your question, the earlier one, which was on deep pockets. Look, unless you have multiple bestsellers, you will not be rich writing a book. Okay, so if you want to write a book because you want to become rich, then that's a very wrong reason to start writing. One. Two, social media has made it easier for you to target your base and reach out to newer segments in a much cheaper manner, in a more inexpensive way. So you don't need deep pockets really to promote a book. If you're very keen on self-publishing, then yes, you need some money to actually go to a publisher, give them the money and get him to publish a book. But apart from that, I don't think to follow this as a passion, you need to write, you need deep pockets. People who have quit their jobs and become full-time writers, remember, that's what you hear in the media, that they've quit their jobs and become full-time successful writers. It could also have been that, they've been forced to become full-time writers and they made a virtue out of it. Okay. So we don't know about it. So, don't get swayed by all these things saying, oh, full-time writer, I'm following my passion. No. Unless the day you have to pay your next month's bills and you don't have that money, you will miss your previous job. Sorry, there's somebody who wanted to.
Yeah, I have a question. There was a good debate regarding the language part in the novels and shortened books and everything.
It was nearly a battle. It was not a debate.
Okay, it's a battle. So how do you foresee the future, whether it's the Puritan part or it's Adi's lingo in the mainstream literature also?
I can't, few of us can say what's going to happen in the future. But I think considering the fact that, humankind has developed so many languages, I don't think we'll let it go so quickly. I think we'll still stay on with language as it is. And SMSs will not serve their own purpose. For me personally, when I look at the language of the SMSs or whatever, it seems to me that we are giving up what we have earned through centuries, and we are going back to the primitive grunting of animals. I can understand. So many words, such beautiful words, little way of expressing yourself. And I think we would be very foolish to give it up. Let's hope we don't.
What's your take here?
See, my take is, it's not completely against yours. I think language needs to be easy. Language is meant to communicate. So language or written language will change over the next 15, 20 years. Basis the way people actually talk to each other. SMSs have changed, letters have stopped. Okay, emails are becoming shorter by the day. So books will undergo a change. How they will undergo a change, difficult to say. But language for sure will not be Latin. Okay? Language for sure will not be the way Shakespeare wrote. Today it is not what Shakespeare wrote. Okay? So what is being written today will not happen tomorrow. Okay? Shakespeare was contemporary then, is a classic now. I just hope the contemporaries of today don't become classics of tomorrow, because they are not worth becoming classics of tomorrow. But it will become easy. Language will become easier. I just hope WOULD does not become WUD in your books.
Language is constantly changing. It's never static. If you look at the words which have dropped out of use, throughout the centuries there's been constant change. So I think it's a very healthy thing to have language changing. When Shakespeare, impossible, but like I said, even Lincoln speak, we would talk like that or write like that. The language does change. But what they are talking of is drastic change.
No, I don't think the SMSs will get into books. I just hope it doesn't. In my lifetime, if it gets in, then my kids will enjoy it.
There's also the term to read between the lines. Language is also a process by which it's a means of human communication. It need not be direct. We are reading between the lines. It's a way in which you communicate indirectly. And for that, language has to be rich. You communicate through nuances. You may say one thing but mean another thing. There is the play of language. There are puns, there are metaphors, there are idioms. Without that, whatever you're communicating, whatever you read, it will be, it's so dry. There's the Hindi word, neeras. You need language. The richness of language is very much part of being human, of communicating with each other. So that way, SMS language does have its place when you are communicating to each other through mobiles. But as far as reading and writing is concerned, without language being as rich and nuanced, it may evolve, it may change, but without that spirit about language being playful and challenging each other as far as communication is concerned, the written word will not work. The word will not work.
Two schools of thought, both will survive. Richness of language, richness of narrative. Okay. Now, both are not necessarily the same, okay, but both will eventually survive is my take on this.
Ravi, please allow me a second part. Sorry, it's about the span of attention, especially reading a book of say 250 pages, vis-a-vis reading something shorter.
I think Usha answered that question saying publishers these days insist on books which are 80,000 words, 90,000 words, which is about 250 to 300 pages, so that people are able to read it, finish it fast and move on. So I think reducing span of attention is actually forcing a different style, which publishers are also bringing in.
How do you avoid
Find a
plagiarism?
publisher to find a